Hi guys. Okay, so it seems like it's possible that some of you may or may not know how to do CPR. I think it's a really important skill that you know. It's obviously like one of the 4 things that you'll be tested on at Mariner Mishaps or in like the first aid in Tambu. So here's just like a really quick and dirty guide to CPR. This obviously is not like a full-on certification, but this should help you understand what to look for, how to do it properly, and what the proper body mechanics are, because these are all things that you'll get tested on. And what will make you like a good first responder if you actually need to use this, which I have and which you very well might yourself. So always good to know. So first things first, you're going to come on scene and this person is either going to be like already unconscious or you're going to see them collapse. The first thing that you're going to want to do is assess for responsiveness. So I'm just going to use my pillow as an example. But you're going to come on scene and then you're going to see that they're down on the ground and then you're going to tap them and you're going to say like, hey, sir, are you okay? Are you awake? And you're going to be like really loud and in their face. And this is because like it's possible that you could have been called to the scene and they were just like napping in the park. That's happened to like EMTs before. They were just called for like, oh, this guy collapsed. And really he was just taking a nap in the park. And you really don't want to have CPR done on you if you're awake and conscious. So tap on the person. Be like, don't be shy about it. Like be loud. Like be like, hey, are you awake? Are you okay? If they wake up, great, cool. You don't need to continue. You can be like, sorry, sir, just making sure. And then you walk away. Um, if they don't respond, though, that could be a problem. Like it's a problem in and of itself. So the next step is you're going to find somebody, hopefully there's someone around, and you're going to point to them and you're going to be like, hey, you. Single them out because bystander effect is kind of like people, unless you tell them specifically to do it, they're going to think that somebody else is going to do it for them. So if you shout out to the crowd like, hey, somebody call 911, and there's a crowd, the more people that are around you, the less likely somebody's going to call 911 because they're all thinking, oh, the guy next to me is going to call 911. I don't have to do it. So what you're going to do, you're going to tap, see if the person's awake. If they're not, you're going to point to somebody and you're going to be like, hey, you, call 911, tell them that this person is unconscious, needs an ambulance, and get back to me. Tell them to get back to you so you know it's been done, so you know that they didn't have any issues, like maybe bad service or something. Tell them to get back to you. And then you're going to tell somebody else, you're going to go like, so you're going to go, you call 911, get back to me. And then you're going to point to somebody else and be like, you get me an AED and then come back. And that's because the faster that you can get somebody, if this person is in cardiac arrest, you're going to need somebody to come back to you and get you a defibrillator. Otherwise, like CPR is great. CPR does not restart hearts. CPR just keeps the blood pumping and keeps the person oxygenated enough so that when you do get the AED there, this person's still worth saving, but it's not going to restart their heart, unfortunately. But it does save lives, so it's really important to know. But it's the AED that will restart their hearts or kind of pause their rhythm enough for their heart to restart itself, but that's too technical. So it's the AED that'll reset their rhythm, that'll really like fix the problem, or hopefully. The sooner that you can get the AED, the better. So again, you're gonna tap, somebody's unconscious on the ground. You're gonna come up to them, you're gonna tap them, be like, hey sir, hey ma'am, in person, are you okay? Are you awake? If they don't respond, call 911, like you, call 911, get back to me, you, go get the AED, come back here ASAP. From there, you're gonna do a check. So you're going to, I'm sorry for this, but I have a really creepy like doll that I'm gonna use for this. Okay, so let me turn it down. So what you're gonna do is a head tilt, chin lift, or sorry, you're gonna feel their, sorry, while you're doing this, you're gonna feel their carotid pulse. So that's like kind of right here on the neck, like right here, and you're gonna feel the carotid pulse for 10 seconds, 10, while you're looking down their chest to see if it's rising and falling. So like for instance, if I'm unconscious, you can kind of see my chest going like up and down. So that's kind of like, that's what you're hoping to see. You're hoping to see some chest movement. But with the person that you're looking at, if they're unconscious, and if they're having cardiac arrest, they're likely not breathing. So you're going to feel for a pulse, and you're going to look down their chest for 10 seconds, verbalize that, and you're going to look for chest rise and fall. If you're not seeing anything after 10 seconds, if you're not feeling a pulse, if you're not seeing them breathe, this person is in cardiac arrest and needs immediate, like you need to start CPR immediately. If they have a pulse but they're not breathing, do rescue breaths. If they're breathing and they have a pulse, watch them, put them in the recovery position, but probably they're in cardiac arrest. Like there's a good chance that they're in cardiac arrest. So feel the pulse, look down, and then simultaneously look down at their chest, look for chest rise and fall for 10 seconds. And then if you don't feel anything after that, that's when you're gonna do CPR. So CPR is done at a ratio of 30 compressions to 2 breaths. If you're a lay bystander, the American Heart Association actually is totally fine with and does recommend that if you don't have any sort of barrier to place between yourself and the patient, you can just do continuous compressions. And that means you're doing just you're just doing compressions. There's no alternation to like giving breaths. You purely just want to, you're just purely giving compressions. If, however, you do have, maybe you carry like a little like mask with you, some people do, I do, you can use that. Then you're going to give 30, and at GAM you will be asked to do the compressions in the breath, but you're going to give 30 compressions to 2 breaths. With adults, that you're going to do an adult GAM, so I'm just going to cover adults here, but you're starting with compressions, then you're moving to breaths. So what it's going to look like: hey, are you awake? Are you okay? Sir, ma'am, are you okay? No response. Hey, you, call 911. You go get an AED. Get back to me. This person's unconscious. Then you're going to, you're going to feel their pulse, their carotid pulse, as you look down their chest for 10 seconds, and you're seeing if you see any chest rise and fall. If you don't, then you're going to start chest compressions. So the mechanics of this are really important. You don't want to hurt yourself. You're trying to get, so for an adult, you're trying to get 2 inches, about like that much of chest compression. And that's because what you're doing is you're squeezing the heart. You're squeezing the heart so that it squeezes out blood, and then you're letting it fully recoil. So you're letting the chest come back to the normal state, so that the heart opens up again. So what you're doing is you're pumping the heart manually. Instead of it doing itself, you're pumping the heart manually. And for this to work, you have to do it at a certain rate, so that it has adequate time to refill. Before you pump it out into the system again, you need to do it for the proper depth so that you're squeezing out enough blood, instead of doing like little sissy little squeezes that aren't squeezing the heart at all. And you want to make sure you have adequate recoil. So instead of just doing like down here and you're just doing deep compressions where you're not letting the heart like open up again, you want to do a proper like down, up, and you're letting the person's heart come all the way, like the chest come all the way back up to normal before you go down again. You're doing this at a rate of 100 to 120 beats per minute. So that's songs like the Bee Gees, like Staying Alive, like ah, 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 staying alive, staying alive, ah, 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 staying alive. Like this beat. Bum, 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 bum. That's how fast you want to be doing it. Maybe like 100 beats per minute, something like that. So while you're, so that's kind of the speed that you're doing your compressions at. We've talked about depth. Now we're going to talk about mechanics. So one of the most important things is that you're getting good depth, and to do that, and that you're not tiring yourself out. This is exhausting work. I've done it, and it is tiring. It takes a lot of muscle, a lot of effort to sometimes move people's chests. It is emotionally exhausting. And if you can get multiple people on this job, rotate yourself out every 2 minutes or 5 cycles. But if you're doing the proper body mechanics, you'll get the most effective chest compressions, and that's going to give the patient the best chance of survival. So how you're going to do that is you're going to interlace your fingers together. So you're going to take one hand, put it on top of your other hand, lace your fingers together, and you're going to grip one hand like this. The top hand's going to be gripped. The other hand's going to be probably like splayed out like that. So you're like that. Top hand, grip over like this. You can switch, you can do whatever's comfortable with you, but flat hand, top hand is laced over. If you're like a really big burly guy or gal or non-binary pal who's like, you know, like you're super strong and you don't need, I've seen like for some frail older ladies, you don't need 2 hands and your full body weight to like make it go down to 2 inches. Sometimes you can just do like one-handed chest compressions. I can't because I don't have that type of upper body strength. But I've seen like big old firefighters who can do it. So if you're that type of person, awesome, great. But if you're not, just do it the 2-hand way. For GAM, do it the 2-hand way. So you're going to take 2 hands, one laced, one straight. And then you're going to put it, so I'm going to use the baby for this. Okay. Sorry for how creepy it is, but okay. So, okay. So you're aiming kind of for just above the like breastbone, where the heart is. So that's about here. On a person, a good rule of thumb is in between the nipples, like midpoint between the nipples on the breastbone. That's right about where you want to hit. So right about here on me. Yeah, right about there. On this baby, right about there on the chest. That's where you want to be pressing. It's about like, yeah, if you go like nipple line, like a little below, that's where you want to be pressing. I use the nipple line on like when you get to actual GAM or Tambu and they have the dummy. Nipple line's good. Or you can just estimate like mid chest. Don't be like stomach. Don't be all the way up here on like the collarbone or whatever. Gonna want to be like between the nipples, like pressing there, or like, you know, here. All right. So that's rate is 100 to 120 beats per minute. So think BG Staying Alive. There are playlists on Spotify you can look up that have more modern music. And you're just going to be, then for hand positioning, lace it straight. At the breastplate, kind of like in between the nipples, you're going to put your hand down. You're going to lock your elbows. Don't be like floppy like this, because then you're not going to be able to push all that well. You're going to want to, lock your elbows. So keep them straight. You're going to want to be on your knees with your shoulders placed directly over your hands. So you're going to want to have your shoulders placed directly over your hands. And what you're doing is you're not pushing with your arms so much as you are coming up and you are putting your full body weight down to, you're putting your full body weight down to compress the chest. So it's going to look a little bit like this. So remember, laced hands on the breastbone, body squarely over your hands, and you're pushing with your body. So it's going to look like this. 1, 2, and 3, and 4, 5, 6, and 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20, 21, 22, 23, 24, 25, 26, 27, 28, 29, 30. So that's your 30 compressions. Again, remember, sorry, see, I'm already like tired. It is a lot of work. So you are, remember, keep it strong. You're going to want to go 2 inches in. On the dummies, you'll hear like a click. On a human, you'll feel their ribs break. So that's fun, but it means you're doing it right. Don't be afraid of it. But yeah, you're going to go 2 inches in on an adult, or 1/3 of their chest diameter. And you are going at 100 to 120 beats per minute. Count out loud helps a lot with if you're switching off with people. After you do your 30 compressions, then you are switching to giving them a breath. I'll do this on the baby. Imagine that I have a mask on this. But what you're going to do is you're going to push their head down, their forehead down, and then you're going to tilt their head and lift their chin, so 2 fingers under their jaw, pull it up, and then for an adult, you just do this over the mouth as you like plug the nose, but you'll like give it a good exhale as you're staring at the chest and you're looking for chest rise. So you're going, and the chest rises, and then you're giving another, and then chest rises, and you're giving the breaths over 1 second. You should have a minimum, the longest you should be taking in between your compression breaks, so 30 compressions to 2 breaths, the longest that you should be taking away from the compressions is 5 seconds. So you get 5 seconds to try to give 2 breaths. If you can't give it after 5 seconds, you're hopping right back into compressions. And that's because when you give compressions, you're getting blood circulating around the body, you're getting oxygen to the tissues, you're keeping the person's body from dying. And the way it works is if you look at the like curve of oxygen getting delivered, it kind of goes up, up, up as you're giving compressions, and then as soon as you stop compressions, it drops. And then you have to rework with compressions to get it back up, and then it drops. So shortest breaks, the shorter your breaks in between your CPR, the more successful your CPR will be. So you're going to give your 30 compressions, making sure the chest recoils in between, making sure your elbows are locked, your shoulders are squarely over the person, making sure you're counting, making sure you're going at the right speed, 100 to 120 beats per minute. And then you're going to, after 30, you switch to breaths. Take no more than 5 seconds. So you're going to give 2 breaths, 1 second each. Watch for chest rise and fall. If it doesn't happen, like if you're giving breaths and the person's chest doesn't rise or fall, the first time, reposition the airway. Take a moment, take a step back, reposition the airway, tilt the head, lift the chin, and then give another breath. And if it works, great. If it doesn't work the second time, maybe just go back to compressions. Like they might have something blocking their airway. And then yeah, you're just going 30 breaths, 30 compressions, 20 breaths, 30 compressions, 20 breaths. So you're just doing that for a cycle. After 5 cycles, so after 5 times, 30 compressions, 2 breaths, 30 compressions, 2 breaths, 30 compressions, 2 breaths, 30 compressions, 2 breaths. I think one more, 30 compressions, 2 breaths. I think that was 5. Then you're going to take a little pause after the compressions, and you're going to again check the person's pulse for 10 I think it's 10 seconds, double check me on that, 10 seconds, and you're going to look at their chest again, and you're going to check to see if it worked, because they might have gotten their pulse back, and that'd be good, and you should stop at that point. They probably won't. At this point, you can also switch off with the person that you're, maybe you have a secondary person. They, you can give compressions for the first 5, then they do compressions for the next 5, and then you're on breaths. But again, it depends if you have somebody helping you or not. What's what I want to say? Right. Okay. So hopefully in the beginning, you did your whole sort of like tap, like the, hey, are you awake? Are you okay? And then you looked at the person, you were like, you call 911, you go get me the AED. At some point, hopefully that person with the AED comes back with an AED. At that point, you're going to, don't stop your compressions, don't interrupt your compressions. What you're gonna do is you're gonna have that person, if they can, place the pads. So what you're gonna do is, I don't know if you can see this on the right side. This is mirrored. Okay, so this is mirrored. This is my left, but you see it as my right. So imagine. All right, so you're gonna be placing left side, upper, so right here, left side, right side, what am I saying? On the right side on your, right side on your upper chest. That's where the first pad goes. Oh no, yeah, it is this. Right side on your upper, you're gonna place your pad. That's your first pad that goes like that. There's pictures on the AED, sorry for the confusingness, yeah. So you're gonna place the first pad here and the second pad here. So left side of your chest is where your heart is, and you're drawing a line between those two with the pads that you're placing. So the first pad's gonna go on right side, upper, kind of like collarbone, sort of like upper pec, sort of right here. You're gonna place it like that. Second pad is going like right below the boob, or like right about here, and you're placing the pad there. And the idea is that you're drawing a line between these two. There's going to be a current of electricity that goes between these two pads, and it's going to shock the heart into working. But yeah, so you're going to place the pads, you're going to turn the AED on, the AED is going to talk to you. It's eventually going to say, analyzing patient. At the point where it's, throughout all of this, you're giving your compressions, you're giving your breaths. When you're giving your compressions, when it says analyzing rhythm, don't touch the patient, you're going to stop touching the patient. You're going to make sure you're away from the patient. And that's because the AED is, not all heart rhythms are shockable. This person could be in VFib, VTAC, could be afebrile, asystolic, and pulseless electric activity. These are all words you don't need to know. But point being, not all heart rhythms are shockable. So if this person has a rhythm that the AED is looking for a shockable rhythm. If you're touching the patient, you're kind of like the AED might be reading your pulse as well as the patient's, which could mess it up because your heart is working, hopefully. So don't touch the patient, because then it might pick up your rhythm and then it'll be no shock needed, or it'll mess up the rhythm. So don't touch the patient when it says don't touch the patient. Then eventually it'll be like shock, like it'll probably, like for this scenario, it'll be like shock advised charging. While it's charging, you can go back to giving compressions. What it's doing is it's building up power to give a shock to the patient, but it's not going to shock quite yet. It won't shock until you press the button that says shock. In between, you can be giving compressions, because remember, the shorter the breaks in between the shorter your compression breaks are, the shorter time between the points where you're not giving compression, the better chance of survival your patient has. So once it says analyzing heart rhythm, shock advised, then you're gonna go back to giving CPR until it says shock advised, don't touch the patient, or clear patient, or something like that. At that point, shock is ready to be given, there's a button on the AED that you'll press that says shock or administer shock or something like that. It's usually yellow, has like a little lightning bolt on it. At that point, you want to make sure that nobody is touching the patient. You want to make sure that the patient is not wet. You want to make sure that they're not in a puddle of water. You want to make sure that you're not in the same puddle of water that they might be in. And that is because you're about to put a decent amount of electricity through this person safely. But if you're touching, the whole point of that is to restart the person's heart. If you are touching the patient, or if anybody else is touching the patient, the electric current that is going through this person is also going to go through you. And that's going to restart your heart. And that's nothing fun. That means that you're going to have two patients at that point. So when it says, before you press that yellow button that says give shock, make sure everything's clear, tell everybody, clear the patient. I'm clear, you're clear, everyone's clear. You're going to make sure that nothing is touching the patient. And then you administer the shock. It'll say shock given or shock administered. At that point, shock has been given. And then you resume compressions. You can resume it immediately afterwards. It'll say like, it'll usually give a little pause and then it'll say like, resume CPR. You can resume CPR as soon as it says shock given. But yeah, and then you're going to go back to doing CPR on the patient. 30 compressions to 30 compressions to 2 breaths at a rate of 100 beats per minute to 120 beats per minute. Aim for 110. But yeah, and then you're just going to keep doing that until EMS arrives, until the person is obviously dead, until somebody tells you to stop, until you get too exhausted to continue. Because if you're getting too exhausted, if you're getting really tired and you're giving like crappy CPR and you can no longer get like 2 inches out, if you can't even get like an inch down, you are so tired, you're not doing the patient any good, and you're just like causing yourself issues that could place you in the hospital. So as always, protect yourself first and then protect your patient. But yeah, see if you can get multiple people to help you out. Otherwise, this could go on for a long time. I've given CPR with other people present, like we were cycling, but we gave CPR for like 45 minutes or an hour before EMS showed up on scene. That was because we were in a rural area, but it could have happened to you while you're camping. So it's really important that you know these skills because they are very applicable to you, to your real life, to people that you come in contact with, and it could save lives. Somebody's chance of survival is much higher if you know CPR and if you're able to perform it, if you're that confident and in your skills, even if you're not, if you just give it a shot, if nobody else is willing to do it, you can be willing to do it and you can save a life. And it's something really easy and really important that I wish more people knew. And I'm really happy that you guys are learning it. All right, so that's the skill. We'll just run through it one more time really fast. All right, so you come on scene, somebody's on the ground, you're gonna tap them. Hey sir, are you okay? Are you awake? They're not. You're gonna point to somebody and you're gonna be like, you call 911, tell them there's a person unconscious, get back to me. Then you're gonna point to the other person, get me an AED and get back here ASAP. Then you're gonna feel the person's carotid and you're gonna look at their chest at the same time for 10 seconds, see if you feel any pulse or if you see any rise in their chest. If you don't see either of these, start CPR immediately. So that's gonna mean you're gonna interlock your fingers, put your shoulders over your hands, lock your arms, put your body weight straight over, and you're gonna give 30 compressions at a rate of 100 to 120 beats per minute. And you're making sure that the chest is recoiling fully. So 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and 5 and 6, 8 and 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20, 22, 23, 24, 25, 6, 7, 8, 29, 30. And then you're going to stop. You're going to really quickly remember you only have 5 seconds. You're going to check. You're going to tilt their head, lift their chin, and give them one breath. You're going to give them 2 breaths over 1 second each, and you're watching for chest rise and fall. If it doesn't work the first time, try retilting their head, relifting their jaw, and giving them another breath. If it doesn't go in the second time and it's been 5 seconds, just go back to compressions. If you don't have a mask for this person, just do continuous compressions. But yeah, you're just gonna keep going right at the breastplate. 30. You're gonna do this 5 times, 5 cycles of 30 to 2. And then after 30 to 2, reassess the person, check it, if they have a pulse or if they're breathing, and if they're not, keep going. Attach an AED when you get it. You're gonna put it over the right upper chest, kind of right clavicle, and the left underneath their boob, underneath their pec or whatever you want to call it, kind of a little lateral. And then you're going to hook it into the AED, turn the AED on, follow the instructions. When it says don't touch the patient, analyzing, don't touch the patient, make sure nobody else is. When it says like shock advised or shock not advised, but you know, after it says that, you can go back to compressions until it says shock ready to be administered, give shock or administer shock, in which case, and don't touch patient, in which case you're gonna stop touching patient, make sure you're clear, everybody else is clear, then press the button that gives the shock, shock administered, go back to CPR. You're just gonna keep doing this until EMS arrives. You can tell that CPR is tiring. All right. Well, okay, hopefully you learned how to give CPR a little better. If you did not already know, or maybe this was just a refresher course for you, I used to do really well on the CPR exam. Remember, verbalize everything that you're doing for the exam. You wouldn't do that in real life. You'd probably just like tap on the person and then you're just doing it. You're not verbalizing what you're doing. But for the test purposes, if you don't say it, they assume that you're not doing it. So make sure you verbalize everything that you're doing. This is a really good skill to learn. I'm really proud of you guys for learning it. Thanks for paying attention if you got it this far. Yeah, and see you on Wednesday.